But first up, let's talk about a secret, a confidential Scotland Yard review into officers in the Metropolitan Police has basically concluded that police in London should be armed with handguns to protect them from crime, from deadly knife attacks. It's an internal review and said the Met Police should consider routinely arming officers with semi-automatic pistols to protect the growing threat against their lives. Well, let's talk about this with Chris Phillips. He's a former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. He's also a former DCI with the Met Police. Good morning to you, Chris. So we've seen poll after poll, like the Police Federation representing frontline police officers saying they don't want to be armed. We know that senior officers have rejected this, but should Met Police be armed?
Well, it's an interesting one because I've always been against routinely arming the police in the UK. I've never thought it was necessary. But it's a sad indictment really on our society that we're now in a situation where there are enough people to really be concerned about who are just going to walk up and start stabbing people. And if we do that, then, if we get to that situation, then the police have got to be able to deal with it. And without a gun, it's going to be very difficult for them.
Well, that's the thing. We've got, tasers, and we say something, but there are armed officers. Now, I work in a part of London. I used to work at Westminster, I work at London Bridge, but actually, it's not unusual to see armed police officers, but that's not the norm around the city. It's certainly not the norm around the country. Why is it that so many officers don't want to carry weapons? Because we know that currently those are highly trained officers. They got from the specialist firearms units. We know they're only deployed to the most dangerous incidents, and we know they're not trigger happy because they fire a handful of times every year, but outrageously do face the most extraordinary, often trials. They not only lose their job and their livelihood and their pension, but they can also face criminal prosecution, as we have seen in a number of cases, for doing their job and using the weapon to protect themselves, the public, and others. Is that why police officers don't want to wear them?
Well, yes. I mean, I never wanted to carry a gun. I did carry a gun for a little while, but I didn't really want to do it routinely, and I didn't want my officers to carry it routinely because I never actually felt that that the risk was so great that they needed to do that. As you say, we've got highly trained officers in the UK. We can give them more training because there's fewer of them. But we're now in a situation where times have changed, and I think officers do feel unable to be able to protect themselves in serious situations, and those situations appear to be getting worse. And I think the mood music within policing will change gradually. But what concerns me, Julia, is what happens if we do have a series of police officers or members of the public stabbed in terrorist attacks, and the police, you can't just give everyone a gun and say get on with it. It takes ages to get this thing through.
Yeah, it did. And we've seen, sort of trigger-happy US cops, shoot first and ask questions later. We certainly don't want to get to that situation. And I mean, I've been a lot of time with Americans who are utterly bewildered by the fact that our police officers are not routinely armed. But has something changed? Is the country more dangerous? Are there more guns, have more baddies got more guns? And is the threat of knife crime now so much greater? I mean, we're constantly told, oh, everything's fine. It doesn't feel fine to someone who lives in central London, but we're told it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because the UK is an outlier here. Armed policing is not an issue anywhere else in the world, actually. Every other major city in the world, the police officers are routinely armed. There's no such term as armed policing. There's just policing.
Yeah, it's policing.
I've
just been in Israel for a week, and we had a security guard with us with a Glock at all times.
Yeah, and people are used to it. It's a sad indictment, really, because I think social media and the ongoing sort of you see incidents many times over now on social media. We've all seen the assassination recently, and it gets into your mind a bit. And you do get a fear of crime that probably isn't as bad as we all think. However, if you're a victim of crime or you are caught up in an incident, you want the police to be able to effectively deal with that situation. And I think we are getting to that stage where maybe police officers would want the ability to carry a gun to use it. I mean, we haven't even given all our officers tasers yet. You know,
yeah, I mean, that I
so
find
poor in
utterly
this country.
extraordinary. But at the end of the day, when I'm thinking, the terror attacks that we've had, forget, someone with a, a random, someone with mental illness with a gun. I mean, sorry, with a knife. But I mean, London Bridge is where our offices are, and when we had the 2017 London Bridge terror attack, what stopped those guys in the end? Rather than the guy, I'm Millwall. Were people chasing them down and getting hurt? But the police officers who came in the van and got out and went and took them out. At the end of the day, guns did solve the problem.
They did, and we just don't know where the whole terrorism situation's going. I've been working in terrorism and counter-terrorism for so many years and I've been saying that this could really go bad very quickly, and we are in that situation. We do have an awful lot of people across the West that really do harbour hatred towards policing and towards society. And if they decide to suddenly kick off, so to speak,
what are we going to do?
We want our police to be able to deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Phillips, really appreciate you joining us. He's the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office and he was also former Metropolitan DCI.